Roll of the Dice, a Game Master's Guide to Better Role-Playing. I'm Dan.
And I'm Lee.
And in this episode, we're talking about tips for combat. We're going to be giving advice to GMs on combat. Hopefully there are some ideas and more experienced GMs can get out of this because combat can be difficult.
There is just so much to combat in almost any system that you're playing, but we're just going to give you the basics on how to make it smoother, make it easy for you, not to make it such a daunting task, I guess. I know there are some games that are more story-driven, but it seems like there's always combat in role-playing.
Yeah, there's always going to be combat in pretty much any game you play.
Yep.
There are some games that are pretty much combat is
Heavy.
going to happen or going to be most of the game.
And a lot of people like that. A lot of people like when you finally get into combat, so that's a good thing, right?
Well, maybe. If you're not experienced in combat, it can be kind of tough to run and it might take up too much time if you're trying to go through and trying to figure out the rules, especially new.
Yeah.
So what would you suggest for new players in the coming in? This is going to be their first combat.
All right, their very first combat, their very first campaign, and I wrote down in our notes in all caps with exclamation points, know all the rules. I know we've said in the past, if you don't like the rules, don't worry about it, no big deal. But you are the GM, and you're writing this. You should know all the rules of that particular system when it comes to combat.
I would say at least knowing all the basic rules.
Yes.
There might be some specific rules that just if you're, I'm going to shoot, but he's 10 meters away. He's really far. He's hidden behind something. I got to add this negative, add that plus. It might get pretty daunting, kind of like pretty intimidating for new GMs.
And by what I mean by knowing all the rules doesn't necessarily mean using all the rules, just having that knowledge and then picking and choosing what you need at that time. Like, you don't have to worry about, are they shooting through fog? Yeah, exactly how far away are they? All those things. Don't worry about it just yet. But familiarize yourself with the rules of that particular system.
And I'd like to point out, if you don't know the rules, it is possible that one of your players might.
Yes.
So don't be afraid to ask them, hey, I don't know, is there a rule for this? Can you help me out here? If you're all new and no one knows the rules, you may want to just simplify it and kind of play it out.
So the next thing you want to do is be organized with everything. I mean, you have probably maybe notes for your story adventure, but then what I like to do is off to the side, just have printed out a sheet. Maybe in the book they have certain monsters or people you're going to be fighting. Print those out and then highlight and circle them. Just the basics, like what do they roll for their initiative, or what do they roll for their attack, or what weapons they have, and just highlight those things. Just focus on the stats and everything for combat specifically.
It always helped me whenever I was thinking about running a D&D campaign. I don't know if I ever really ran one. The monster manual was really beneficial to me because if I knew they're going into combat and they're going to be fighting these creatures, it has them broken down and listed already. Their hit points are within this range. Their abilities are these. It just spells it out for you. And then I think that can, if you don't want to create your monsters, a monster manual helps you, especially in a first combat, to just have that stuff right in front of you.
Yeah, and some books will even tell you this is what the skill rating, I guess, of the monster bad guys are. So that way you're not throwing something at the players that are too powerful. Okay, so you're going to get into combat in your very first session. Don't throw too many bad guys at your players, not only because you might take them out because you may be picked against the monsters are too powerful, but also so you're not rolling dice and having to keep track of 12 people, basically, that to run and attack your players.
I think one time I was in a game where they had so many monsters there, and so many of them were rolling in between us. I had one turn to do something, and I think there's like three of us. So we had three things to do in a turn, and they had, I don't even remember, like 10. The monsters had like 10 rounds.
Yeah.
Or 10 turns. There's so many of them. It just took away from the experience because it's like, oh, now I have to wait forever.
Yep, you're waiting for your turn.
If you're trapped, you're pretty much dead in that one round.
Yeah, if you don't choose correctly on your action, you can get, I shoot and I miss. Well, that's all I got to do. Now let me wait half an hour while the game master is rolling. It's really difficult to do, and you're sitting there waiting. And what happens sometimes people get on their phone or they start having a side conversation. And that's why you want to definitely keep combat fast, because I always picture combat as a movie. I like to visualize it in my head. I want to have more than just you enter a room, there's 5 bad guys, you fight. Uh,
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to add to that, but
Usually it just doesn't. You don't want to just be that way where you walk into a room and the GM's like, "Okay, now you fight."
yeah.
You're like, "Why are we fighting? What's happening?" You know.
Not just that is besides story wise, you want to set up something that makes it more interesting instead of you're just in a room and then they describe it's 30 feet by 40 feet and the ceiling is 20 feet tall. So we're say you're in a warehouse. Okay, now start adding things to that warehouse. Are there chains up above or hooks that are used to move cargo? Are there walkways up above? Are there stairs? Are there crates? So then maybe they need to can jump behind some cover. Is it dark? Is there maybe only sunlight coming in? Things like that you want to start adding to it because in combat you want to give your players a chance to be creative, in my opinion. And that's where you shine, Dan, usually in combat.
When you come up, well, when you give a good description of the location you're at, it gives you other ideas that you can take,
Yep.
especially if your character's desperate. Like, okay, the shooting's not working,
Yep.
the stabbing's not working, or whatever's not working. What other options do I have here to escape or to get out? If they know the surroundings, then it gives more to play off
Mm-hmm.
than you're in a room with 5 people, which then you just imagine a room of emptiness
Yes.
and there's nothing there for you to work off of or fight. And you're like, oh, I can't stab him and I can't shoot him. I guess I'm dead because I have no other options. There's nothing else I can do.
And it makes it boring. But you said stabbing? I mean, stabbing always works. you, you just got to
Uh,
just stab harder.
unless the guy who gave you the knife gave you a crappy knife.
It breaks right away. As a GM, you can, yeah, give those ideas. Sometimes you don't describe it, and I like it if the player can ask me, so what else is in this room? Maybe I didn't think about describing everything in the room. So if you're a player, definitely ask your GM, describe more. What else is in here? Because they're thinking, okay, well, maybe I can do something creative. If there's a puddle of water that all the bad guys are standing on, and I have a taser or lightning powers, well, okay, well, I can use that to my advantage and set something up that's more interesting than just a hack and slash or ducking behind cover and just shooting. Try to make your combat a little bit more interesting.
I was going to tell a story here, and this kind of leads to, I think, this story.
Dan's story time corner.
Story time.
All right, I'm gonna sit
Um,
down and get snuggly and get my sun drop
when,
out and listen.
oh, you got sun drop? Ooh.
Yeah.
When you're being descriptive as a GM, not only do you want to describe the room and stuff, that you want to describe how well the player characters are doing, as well as in their battle or in their fight against the villain. I was running a game. I was running the Invent Invasion of Robotech, and the characters were in this apocalyptic world where everything went to crap. Humans were having a really hard time and struggling to do anything. And so I made sure the player characters were like that. They didn't have much equipment. All the battles they did were rough and hard. And I was like, all right, I'll give them something. I'm going to have this underground bunker that they find, and they climbed in there, and they're trying to, find out what was in this bunker. And I sent these like mechanical dogs after them, and they had basically 4 hit points, I'll say, and they had a gun that could do 1 to 4 damage
Yeah.
to these things. And one of them shot one of them, and it did 3 points of hit points to it. And I basically said, "Oh, it fell down. It got back up, and it's starting to run at you again." And they freaked out, and they're like, "All right, we're leaving." I'm like, "Why are you leaving?" And they're like, "This is really scary. We can't deal with this." And they left the underground bunker.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, they didn't really want to play very much anymore that game. And I was asking, "Well, what happened? Why are we not playing this? Or why do you want to play something else?"
Mm-hmm.
They said, "Well, when we were under there and we shot this thing, it fell down, it got back, and came running at us like nothing happened."
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I probably should have had it like blow off the legs or done some damage to it to show them how
Mm-hmm.
much damage they actually did to it. It probably shouldn't have got back up and kept running at them. And it kind of killed the game because they felt like
Oh.
they could do nothing.
Yep. That you were just throwing too hard of things. Yeah. It was just too much of a struggle and no reward for their actions.
So I just want to
Even
point out,
though.
make sure you let them know how well they're doing in the battle against the things that you're fighting, because it could make them not want to play that game again, or could just
Yeah.
that this is always going to fail. We're never going to get anywhere.
Yeah. That can be discouraging. Yeah, even though you were doing a good job, you just forgot to say that one thing. Like the robot dog gets back up, but its circuits are shorting out and sparks are coming out of it, and it starts to twitch when it moves slowly towards you. Yeah, it only has one hit point left. It's on
And
its
I was
last
about to give
legs.
them, I was going to give them a base where they could hide out because the
Yeah.
things could always chase them down. I'm like, oh, this place you'll be safe. There's tons of weapon and armor down here, give you something to fight with. It's just setting them up. And that's, and I failed
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't want to play anymore. I was like, I was going to give
Dang
you
it!
everything.
I had plans. Oh man, I screwed up. Damn it. Did you talk to them and then they came back and played that campaign, or they just quit?
We just quit and moved on to something else.
Aw.
Yeah,
Well, maybe you can get back into that sometime.
maybe.
Maybe. But playing off that idea, I sometimes will kill an NPC or bad guy that gets hit. An example could be they have 30 hit points, and someone goes out of their way and they roll really really well, or they plan something and it pays off and they do 29 hit points of damage. I let them kill that bad guy because it's a cool finishing blow, or maybe the combat has gone on too long. Who cares? It's one hit point. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If they did something cool and it ends the combat, it doesn't affect anything. Let them succeed
Yeah.
by
And
taking
I
them
think I
out.
started to do that too after that situation. I'm like, it does make sense that much damage, they're pretty much out of the battle.
Mm-hmm.
You might as well just kill them off or just incapacitate them and say, this guy's out of the battle. He's out of the fight,
Yeah,
or
he's
he got
not dead.
shot and
Yep.
fell the last, 5 foot off the table or something like that and did the 1 point of damage to himself.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, falling falling kills them. The last bit of health they have left. Agreed. Well, talking about having maybe too many bad guys, I like to do is have them all have the exact same initiative. They all act at the same time because that makes it very easy for you to keep track of when they go. So that way you don't have 5 different NPC bad guys. You have to roll 5 different initiatives, keep track of when they are. That's just too much work, and I definitely want to keep you on the same initiative.
I've had several GMs do this. Sometimes when you're fighting like the main bad guy, if they have minions,
Hmm.
sometimes the main bad guy will have his own
Oh
initiative.
yes, yes.
His like right hand man might have his main initiative, and
Hmm.
then his minions have all the initiative at the same time. So sometimes you can split out a person or two if they're very important. But I think if you have just a mass amount of just things you're fighting that doesn't matter, I think you can put them all in the same initiative just to simplify things.
Hmm. I'm nodding my head. Yes.
I hear you nodding.
Okay, well, so we're doing combat, we're having fun, they're winning, but now we get to a rule or something that you really don't know what to do. You know what, just make it up or ignore that part and just continue and do a roll behind the screen and just say what happens because you just want to keep the combat moving, you want to keep your storyline going and having fun with it.
I'm gonna nod here. Yes.
Nodding back at me.
You're
Mhm.
fine.
Yeah, if you can't remember the rule, I know sometimes you have time and you just want to go to that book, open it up. But again, we're slowing down combat. We want to keep combat fast and exciting because, I mean, in combat initiative, rounds in many different games usually last seconds. Their combat's fast, fast, fast. And sometimes you could be spending an hour on that one scene. And that's, while that can be fun, it can also slow things down and waste you only had 2 hours of play and you used 1 hour of combat. But everything depends on what you're doing. Sometimes I just roll dice behind the screen just to make noise, and then I cheat and say, "Oh, they miss. Oh, they hit you, and they do 5 points of damage." I actually didn't even roll damage. I rolled dice, but I didn't even add it up or look at it. I just gave them damage. The reason why I do this is obviously it depends on what's going on. An example could be maybe I rolled really high and I was actually using the dice. I was actually reading the dice out loud correctly, and I've been kicking their asses because of the dice. And they've been the heroes have been attacking back, and they've been really rolling poor. The dice weren't lucky that night for them, and they're just getting their
Yeah.
asses kicked by minions that I didn't intend for them to get their asses kicked by. All right, well, I'm going to start fudging the dice. I'm going to start lying, but still try to make it interesting. I mean, they get hit, but it's only 1 point of damage and other things like that.
And I think that you could do that too with, if everyone's hurt or there's one person trying to save the rest of the group and they're the last chance for everyone, and you're like, I don't really want to kill them. Let's give them a chance to kind of do something cool, and if they're going to go and try to pull a switch that might do something to save the group, and they're trying
Yeah.
to get there, you're like, okay, well, I want to kind of let them get to the switch, and then I'll make that roll for the switch, that last moment roll, the very most important roll.
Mm-hmm.
I'll fudge everything to let him get there, and then make that be the final decision, as if he saves the group or everyone.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
So
like
you can
that.
still give your player character a success, but you allow him to build up and build that story up to that point, and let that most important moment be the one deciding factor for that battle.
Yes.
Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
It does make sense. Yep. There is so much to combat. We can't cover all of it in just one little episode, but
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
We spend hours talking about combat.
Oh, really? We could really getting in depth to it, but just thinking about the basics. Let's see. What else do we have to tell you?
I think being a good story, I think rolling, especially if you're out of time and you're trying to speed things up, make them just roll a general roll. Say, hey, what do you want to do for this combat? This is what the villains are going to do. You know they're going to attack. What do you want to do?
Mm-hmm.
Have them roll for one specific trait that applies to what they wanted to do, and then just see who succeeded, who didn't succeed, and then just tell the story of the combat for that round. Villains came into attack, you shot, you jumped up there, you made it, you tripped and fell down. That's the end of the round. Now let's roll again for one thing you want to do, and just try to get through that combat quickly to
Mm-hmm.
speed things up, especially if that wasn't the main point and you're just trying to get back to the story that you want to tell.
Yeah, yeah. That's something that is actually kind of interesting, is having you roll for the players. Maybe they're so brand new that they have no idea what the combat rules are. They didn't even bother to look at the book, or maybe you only have one book and you're the GM that has it. And actually that can be kind of fun too, is tell me what you want to do. Okay, I want to swing my sword and try to trip the person. Okay, then you roll behind the screen. And then you can ask them on your sheet, what plus do you have? What bonuses do you have for swinging your sword? And they tell you, and then you roll and do it that way. And that can be kind of fun too, because you can fudge it, change what you need to, and they're not the ones necessarily doing the math in your head, because maybe you're the GM that knows all the rules, and you can keep it going faster that way. Because that happens sometimes where players, they slow themselves down because they don't know what to do, or they get intimidated by the sheet of all this information in front of them. And then they have to look, all right, I have a +2 for this. Oh, it's a +1 sword. Oh, and they have cover, and they're trying to figure out all the math or rules in their head too. So that's what I mean as a GM. You should know all the rules too.
Start small.
Yeah, of course, you got to start small.
When I started role playing, I think it was we were playing in the D&D. The first things they had me roll was just roll your strength. Your sword is based off your strength or whatever. Just roll your strength to see if you hit. And then later on, they're like, okay, well now add this to it, because this is your ability you have. So let's, from now on, these are so starting off, trying to find everything you have to add to your rolls all the time is very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
So just knowing that as a player character, your GM's like, hey, this is what you want to do. Just roll off your main stats for right now, and we'll roll off that, and later on we'll go through and add things in once you kind of understand that.
Yep, don't worry about it. We're just gonna have you just roll, and that one thing. Look at that one thing. Great, and then move on from there. Yeah,
I think we'll go from here, and hopefully we'll expand on some of these things in the next episode.
We will definitely revisit combat again and again and again, giving you other tips and ideas to make it more exciting. And the biggest thing is to make it more fast, fun, frantic. I'm trying to think of more F words. Freaking fun.
And don't be afraid of big battles, because a long big battle could be fun, as long as it's as long as it keeps. If it's not fun and people are just bored, just get through it. But if you're having a great time with it and the battle takes the whole campaign, go for it. Don't be afraid of it.
Yeah, I guess I didn't mean necessarily to say this combat has been taking an hour. I guess I meant to say if everyone's having a blast doing it, awesome. That's why we're here. That's why we're all sitting around the table together, having fun, killing the bad guys, and having huge battles when you need to. That can be really rewarding too. But you always have to try to make it more interesting than just a room. They're the bad guys. Roll initiative. Hack and slash. Who comes out on top?
A big battle on another podcast.
Definitely. And that was Tips for Combat. If you would like to send us a question, do so. Roll the Dice podcast at gmail.com or on Facebook at Roll the Dice.
Yeah, and send us any comments you have about combat. What made combat fun for you? Was it successes? Was it the story? Let us know, and we will talk about it, hopefully in the future on a future podcast. And remember, keep shaking those dice, and may your roll be true.